Hi, and thank you for tuning in to Noir Histoire. I'm Natasha, and in this episode, I'll be discussing Black Boys. Black Boys is a documentary that I found while searching for documentaries to review. I was looking for something, when I first started out, I was looking for something to review for Father's Day. And so I was searching through documentaries about Black men, Black boys, kind of trying to find something that would be from a positive perspective, or would at least dig deeper into the experiences of Black men, sort of along the lines of the documentary that I reviewed for Mother's Day, which is In Our Mother's Garden. So I was looking for something similar about the Black male experience. And not to say that it's not important, but there are several movies and documentaries about young Black males, but quite often it tends to lead more towards the not necessarily stereotypes, but some of the more negative aspects of the experience. And so coming across this documentary and reading the summary, I felt like while it might not be all sunshine and rainbows, it would be a more balanced and honest portrayal of Black men. As quite often looking at movies, documentaries, listening to music, the portrayal of Black men that you see in media, or rather what's portrayed as being the norm for Black men, is outside of the experience that I've had with Black men with regards to, Black men that I know, the Black men that I grew up around, friends, family members, their romantic partners, their significant others, people that I've just met in passing. The Black men that I know, the Black males that I know, are very different from the portrayal that you see in media, where I feel like, especially within the last few decades in the proliferation of hip-hop's expansion into other parts of Black culture beyond music, that as hip-hop changed from being like this socially conscious thing with a lot of different, facets, and portraying different people within the Black community, I feel like in more recent decades, it become more simplified. There's a greater occurrence of Black men being portrayed, typically one way. And to be clear, I'm not blaming this on hip hop. I'm just saying that I think with hip hop, with movies, and with that being like the primary outlets of Black entertainment, you kind of see repetition of the same kinds of imagery about Black men. This very simplified depiction of Black men as though, all Black men fit into just a few categories, where the same could be said for the portrayal of Black women, but here we're speaking about Black men. And like I said, I'm not blaming that on hip hop music. I'm not blaming it on movies. I just feel like within media, despite in recent years, you have more outlets. You have the internet, you have YouTube, you have Netflix, you have other streaming platforms and networks and whatnot, in addition to music and in addition to movies, where in the past you didn't have all of these other outlets. It seems like despite having all of these additional options, you're still seeing very limited depictions of Black men, right? It's like it tends to veer more towards the negativity. It's like there's still this idea, increasingly in recent years, there's this portrayal of Black men as that Black men, Black males on a whole, are just this one thing. Despite having these various outlets, it's like there's just this one way of being a Black man. And that's just really not what I see in my own interactions with Black men, with Black males, be that from boys on up to grown men. There's a wide diversity in experiences and personalities and how people carry themselves. And quite often what I see in music and what I see in movies is not what I see in real life at all. I was looking for something that would present, if not a more positive portrayal, then at least more balanced. And in finding this documentary, initially I thought it might be specifically about Black boys, or, as in kids and education and things like that, which to some degree it is. But because Black boys grow up to be Black men, you also have conversation here about Black manhood as well. So I felt like the documentary gave more than I was expecting, more than I was looking for, but in a positive way, in the sense that it went beyond what I was initially looking for to explore a broader range of topics. And then to also not just focus on Black male children, but also Black males as adults. So a wider spectrum of ages. Watching the documentary, I like that they explored a few different topics and dug deeper with the interview subjects, where so often the portrayal of Black manhood is this thing of hypermasculinity, a lack of feelings. The only feeling that's portrayed or expressed is anger, rage, aggression. I felt like you got a more complex and realistic portrayal of Black men from an emotional standpoint, where you kind of have a peeling away of that bravado, of that hypermasculinity that you see in some other projects, where you have a number of Black men, they have from different backgrounds, different experiences, talking about how they experience the world, their identities, and most importantly, how they feel. So starting off with the movie was actually a nice move, is that you have one Black man who's an adult. He looks like he's maybe in his late 20s, early 30s or so, maybe more like mid 30s. And you see him with his son. And that's like the first thing, right? Not only is this about Black men being sons, being brothers, but also the portrayal of Black fathers, where you have this man talking about himself growing up and the important role that his father played in his life. And as a result of that, the heartbreak of losing his father at a very young age, of having his father die at a young age, and how that impacted him. And the way that he raises his son, where you can see the love he has for his son, the time that he spends with his son, the hopes and aspirations that he instills in his son, the sense of confidence that he tries to instill in his son. And it's like one of the things that quite often with men, granted some of it can be due to his son still being quite young, is like he's a toddler, but you see him holding his son, hugging and kissing his son, displaying affection towards his son, where so often in conversation, just in things that I've observed, and it's something I think you might see across races, but it seems like when boys reach a certain age, that it's on their mother to love them, to show physical affection to them. A father can show affection to his son, but it's like past a certain age, it somehow becomes unacceptable. That as a father, you shouldn't continue to show physical affection towards your son, when he's like past the age of 5, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous. That for a Black boy to express sadness or anything beyond just anger or happiness is unacceptable for men too. I love that they actually explore that here, how damaging this can be, that this thing of boys who will then grow up to become men being told that it's not okay for them to feel and express emotion, the harmful impact that it can have on them in their development and the people that they then become as adults. We're all human beings. We all experience emotion. It's not to say that, you should lash out or you should be crying about every little thing. But when you feel what you feel as a human being, you have a right to experience and express those emotions. And it's important for children to be taught how to express those emotions in a healthy way, how to cope with problems and difficulties in a healthy way. And if your solution is just to tell children that they bury these feelings, I think in the long term, it ends up being counterproductive. What you end up having is individuals who are stifling their feelings, who are hiding their feelings, who aren't learning how to properly deal with their emotions, how to cope with difficulties in life and express their emotions, express themselves and their feelings in a healthy way. And what you then have is that those boys who were taught this way of living then grow up to become adults who have all of these feelings bottled up inside. And something I liked about the documentary is that it explores the dangers of this, where as Black people in America, in a society that's quite often very hostile towards you, in a society that honestly is set up to systematically not give you the same advantages and opportunities as everyone else, it's human that you might feel frustration, that you might feel upset, hurt, anger, sadness in going about your day-to-day life, or at least at points in your life. And being told that it's unacceptable for you to express those feelings, it not only devalues those feelings and invalidates those feelings, but it also denies you your humanity. It says that not only do you have to go through these negative experiences, not only do you have to deal with prejudice, racism, structural inequalities, that you're also denied the right to express your feelings about these things. That there's an expectation for you to just bottle all of this up and just move on and get through it. Which really, because humans are emotional beings, like humans have emotions. Animals have emotions, right? Animals, they cry, they're happy, they express emotion, maybe not the same way we do, but animals do express emotion. And if animals in their natural state express emotion, how is it that we as human beings, that you as a man, that you're told that it's unacceptable for you to express your feelings, that it's unacceptable for you to have feelings? With books, movies, projects like this that explore Black manhood from a more complex and realistic perspective, where it's not just these one-dimensional characters or stereotypes, I find that refreshing. Here it is that you have several boys, young men, and adult men explaining their experience, and not just explaining their experience as far as like the facts of what happened, but also how they felt, and being very honest about that, being very open and vulnerable. And I can't really think of like the word to describe it, because you think about it, for you to open up about your innermost feelings, your insecurities, hopes, disappointments, it requires some degree of trust in the other person. And to express those things, especially when you've been taught or otherwise require some degree of trust that this person that you're expressing your thoughts and feelings to is going to be respectful of those thoughts and feelings, that they aren't going to judge you, that they're going to allow you the space to express that humanity without judgment, or at least with some attempt to understand, right? That they give you the space, the bandwidth to express yourself. And what you have here is these different individuals talking about moving through society and some of the choices they've experienced, the choices they've made, some of the negative experiences they've had, right? Like how they move past things of being frightened and pretending like things are okay, feeling as though they have to present themselves as being untouchable, but then being very honest about their feelings and emotions. And it's something that you often don't really see with regards to men in general, and you especially don't see with Black men. So it's like, if you think about it with hip hop music, as I said, I don't mean to scapegoat hip hop music. I'm not blaming hip hop music for everything, but rather because it started out as being an outlet for especially young urban Black and Hispanic males to express themselves. But over the years, even this art form that was supposed to be about self-expression, providing social commentary and whatnot, which you still have to some degree, but it's gotten to a point where even within music, you're not allowed to be expressive about your thoughts and feelings, right? It's so often dumbed down or not expressed. So often the focus is on shallow topics, or even taking deep topics and being incredibly unrealistic about what your experience has been. It's like where you have this glorification of like prison culture. It's like, instead of trying to divert young Black men away from those things, it's become like a mark of Black manhood, an expectation for Black men. This is how you prove yourself as a Black man. And it's like, then the reality is, as expressed here, I think if you would speak to most people that live that life, that like, no, at least not anyone with any kind of sense or life experience, and especially past a certain age, is looking at drug dealing or illegal activity as something to aspire to, especially not if they have any other options. Most often, if you're really being honest, the people that are in that life because they feel they don't have any other options. They don't really see other pathways to financial security and financial stability. That's not to excuse wrongdoing, but rather to explain the inaccurate portrayal of what the motivating factors are. Whereas in the past, like, drug dealing was denigrated, or at least it was regarded as something that people did for lack of other options. You now have this thing where some actually seem to applaud it, see this as like the path to take, right? It's incredibly problematic, especially when, as explained within the documentary, you have so many limitations being placed on possible avenues for successful Black males. And it's something that I've touched on with other books and documentaries. So often Black children, especially Black males, they're taught that their only pathway to success really is through sports, and then to a lesser degree, some form of entertainment. In showing any kind of aptitude or being of physical size, dimensions, having the physical capabilities to potentially play basketball, football, or whatever other sport, that's quite often what Black male children are pushed towards. You don't have as much of a push for Black boys to pursue academic achievement. It's like when you compare communities, you look at what's pushed for young white males, they're pushed forward, right? More examples are made available for them. You see multiple pathways to success for them, be that going into medicine, becoming a doctor, becoming a lawyer, engineer. In recent decades, you have computer science, STEM, working with computers, technology, things like that. You don't have the same pressure being put on them, the same limited examples being made available for them in comparison to Black boys. The examples that are pushed for them more often are for them to be athletes. Not to say that there's anything wrong with being an athlete, not to say that there aren't Black men in tech or in medicine or whatnot, but just that there seems to be a serious misbalance or a lack of effort between showing representation in the fields and pushing Black children to explore a wider array of fields. It's like this idea is promoted that Black kids have to use their physical attributes to get ahead. And it's like implied that they lack the mental ability to explore other options. Like you have to be mindless to some degree. But if you have like the physical capabilities, you can go out onto the field or the court or whatever and be successful at a sport, and that's your way out. Because there's less faith or there's less belief, less promotion of the idea that you as a Black man can use your mind and academic achievement to achieve some kind of success in a professional career that would also provide a pathway to financial success and stability. And as expressed here, we have a few of the Black men who speak about their experiences. And it's the thing that I like about documentaries like this, where they speak about the reality of pinning all of a child's hopes and dreams on making it to some professional sport league or the top of some sport, where the reality is very few people make it to the top. Because realistically speaking, when you think about the number of children who play sports at, let's say, primary school level, that then shrinks down when you get to junior high, shrinks even more when you get to high school, shrinks even more when you get to college. And then of that, it's just a fraction that'll make it into a professional league, right? The numbers just whittle down further and further. So when you look at the starting number to the number that actually make it, the odds of you making it onto one of these professional teams, playing for like a league, and for any kind of time to make a good amount of money, the success rate is actually pretty low. The reason that these top athletes become such big stories is because them making it to that level of their profession is successful in and of itself because so few of them do. You hear about those few that make it to earning $1 million contracts, but you don't really hear as much about the countless others who never really made any kind of money playing sports, or dedicated their lives to it, but didn't make it to the professional leagues. And it's something that I've stressed, where in placing importance in education, not to say that you're guaranteed success and you're guaranteed a job, but it increases your odds. It gives you more options. It improves your likelihood of achieving financial success and stability. But that's not really put across quite often as being an option for a lot of young Black male children. There's greater focus on them playing sports. In recent years, because of the handful of, if you think about it, like rappers who've achieved some degree of long-term financial success. Because when you think about it, right, when they talk about hip-hop moguls, it's really just a handful of names. At the top of the list would be, Diddy, Jay-Z, Dr. Dre. And when you think about it, sure, they made it in rap, but think about the number that fell off. Think about the DJs and a few other people that you think about who really made it to that high level. It's less than 10, maybe. You hear about these hip-hop moguls, and really the names that you hear, it's the same names over and over again, which kind of gives you this skewed perspective on the success rate. Because these handful have had, outside success, it makes it look like a viable, a very lucrative pathway. But the reality is, for every one of them, you have hundreds, if not thousands of others who made it nowhere near that level. And the reality is that not to say you can't explore sports or entertainment as an option, but rather that in teaching Black boys that this is all they can aspire to and not developing them in other areas, not ensuring that they have the academic skills to keep their options open, it does them a disservice. Many of them could do quite well with other professions that have higher odds of them achieving success. But we have a problem of lack of examples, right? That general society doesn't push them towards those other outlets, those other options. You know, it's like where were like the computer science camps and the programming camps and things like that for young Black boys? But then it's like you have all of these like sports and like pee-wee leagues and things like that. So like quite often young Black males are told that they aren't smart, that really all they're good for is just their physical attributes, that if they can catch a ball, run really fast, that's great, but that otherwise they're not smart. And it's pretty sad when you think about it, where from a very early age, you have this thing of young Black men being told that by default, due to just the pathology of them being young Black males, that they have very few options, where their options are really just to play a sport, rap, sell drugs, and whichever one of those pathways they take, there's a good chance that they're going to spend some time in jail. And it's like you think about what that does to a child, feeding them this misinformation, this like discouraging thoughts. You're being told that those are your options from a young age, that to some degree, regardless of whatever path you take, regardless of whoever you are, regardless of however you're raised, wherever you come from, it's expected that you're going to fail in life and you're going to do some kind of time in jail. If you're lucky, your only real chance of success is to play some kind of sport, be some type of an entertainer. Like, just imagine what that does to a child. And then in other opportunities, like with young white children, they're being told that they can seemingly be anything and do anything they want to be. That anything they can dream of, they can achieve. You're being challenged to think, to use your mind. It's assumed that you're capable of anything. You're smart and you can learn and you can grow as a white child. But as a young Black boy, you're being told the exact opposite. That the world is not really made for you. That for you to achieve and overcome is really betting against the odds. It's like, imagine what that does to your psyche. When you're being told this over and over again from childhood, from the time you're a very young child. And so what I appreciated about the documentary here is that it explores these different things. And the history, there's like a lot of data points presented about disparities between opportunities, the realities for young Black men versus young white men. But they also take time to actually speak with Black males from a variety of age groups about their experiences, their views, opinions on these various topics. And I feel like it offers, sometimes documentaries, you can have just a stating of facts and research, but the better documentaries actually go out and speak to the subjects of whatever the topic is to get a real understanding of them and their experience. And it serves the documentary really well here. Thanks for tuning in. Show notes are available on the Noir Histoire website by the link in the episode description. If you enjoyed this episode and want more, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and check out my movie review playlist.